now I can tell you there's a commentary on the DVD, on the Blu-ray, where director John Woo talks about what's important to him when it comes to making an action movie. And what he talks about is when he was speaking with the writers and when he was working with the actors, it was so crucial that emotion is a part of the story, that there's an emotional reaction to everything that occurs. And to define these characters very distinctly, it's John Woo who asked for the love touch to the face, who asked for the little tying of the shoe. John Woo wanted these little emotional touchstones that even if you're not feeling anything for it initially as an audience member, it'll register in your brain that later on in the movie, when these characters come head to head again, that it becomes a signal, especially when we get this face swapping, because Sean Archer takes on the face of Castor Troy, and while Sean Archer is in jail trying to get information from Castor's brother, Castor wakes up from his coma and then takes Sean Archer's face and does the same surgery, and then takes over the FBI. So when these two characters are now living opposite lives, these physical touchstones become a key to proving that their character is who they are. So this is the fact that this is the director asking for these things. This is the director, and this is the director's job, is not just to make sure the action looks cool and that it's a spectacular sequence. But John Woo, one of the best action directors of all time, right? Is that not the truth from everyone who loves action movies so thoroughly and deeply, that John Woo is considered one of the, if not the best, one of the best action movie directors of all time? So if he's one of the best action movies directors of all time, and this is what matters to him, capturing the emotion and definition of characters and defining their character journeys through that emotion across a movie, let alone these individual action sequences and individual character scenes, that goes a long way of showing you, both as a storyteller or as just a fan of the genre, that goes a long way to tell you that storytelling is a part of action, and that action, when done correctly, when done by one of the best people who does this, emotion, story, these are things that matter to the action sequences. They're not just there for spectacle. They define the character and create all the circumstances for which the rest of the movie will occur. Because the director is what? The director is the audience. The director is the storytelling prism through which every choice in the movie is made. Every choice has to build the characters, create a connection to the audience, and get us from one scene to the next scene. Because, and I'm going to go back to what Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park, frequently are known to say, because one thing happens, another thing happens. Or this happens, therefore this happens. Or because this happens, another event happens. Because Castor Troy kills Sean Archer's son, Sean is unstoppably motivated to capture or kill Castor in revenge or justice, whichever one he'll take. And you see through the action sequence just how Sean will literally stop at nothing, no matter what it takes, except that he doesn't want his fellow men to die. And there's a scene that comes up after this action sequence when Castor is still believed to be dead, and all of his cronies are in jail. There's a scene following this opening action sequence where Sean returns to his office and the entire team is there, the entire team that's alive is there, and they cheer for him, and somebody sent a bottle of wine for him. And Sean, being Sean, is not happy. He is not happy because more agents had to die. And so everyone tells him to have a speech. And at first he says, I have nothing to say. And then he comes back and says, no, wait. And he picks up the bottle of wine or champagne, holds it up in the air and says, this is for the agents who died today so that we could accomplish this. And he lists their names. He knows them by name. And again, during the action scene, we saw him try to save them. We saw him emotionally affected by them dying. So what do we have in this whole opening? The action has defined our hero as so emotionally invested. Like he truly is full of compassion and heart and love and cares about everyone in his life. And the villain cares about nobody except for one person, his brother. And how does it affect the rest of the story? Sean is still not happy after the death of Castor. What seems like the death of Castor Troy. He's still not happy. He's still miserable because it meant the loss of other lives. And his misery spreads to the misery of the rest of the office, where even the office is like, but dude, but we won. But to Sean, it's like, but we won at the cost of more lives. And the whole reason I'm hunting for this guy is to stop people from dying. And so, there's a lot of emotional depth to this character, and there's a lot of suffering for this character that he's going through. So, and this is just establishing his character, that when he's flipped, when he's Castor Troy, and as Castor Troy pretending to be Sean Archer with John Travolta's face, he also runs missions, and he later on ends up leading the mission to deactivate his bomb, the whole terrorist threat that motivates the whole sci-fi face swapping in the first place. As Sean Archer, Castor stops his own bomb, and then we get a return scene, a repeat scene of him walking to the office and everyone's cheering him. And this time around, because it's the villain, it's not the hero, yes, he enjoys the adulation, and he can't even pretend to be Sean Archer for 5 seconds, because he's got to take it all in, love it, and then he grabs the ass of an attractive colleague. And, she's both shocked, perturbed, and maybe she appreciates it. It's such a mix of feelings that comes out of her. Because you see that this whole team respects him and looks up to him, and they don't know that he's not the same person right now. But this is how all of these scenes from the opening, they have all these definitions of character, affects the story, and the consequence of violence. Violence, although the villain does not care who he hurts, the consequences, well, other people do. The hero fights the villain because he does not want that consequence to occur, but nonetheless it does. If you fight with monsters, ye shall become a monster. If you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you. So, but this character definition is important for following scenes. It's not just there for the individual moment. It's there, just like with Blade and his repression, it's there because later on in the movie, it has a consequence and it has a meaning to the character. And it will take the entire movie's journey of both characters seeing the other person's life. When Castor is pretending to be Sean and he goes into the house and he, romances the wife, he ultimately has a scene where the wife takes him to the cemetery to visit the son. And he has for one moment, you see in his face the guilt and the discomfort of being there, because as we know from the opening scene, this is his one guilt, his one shame. He didn't want to kill the son,